Can you hear that thunder? Lightning before the thunder. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, we've all seen the dramatic surveillance video footage, black and white. It's been released on Dateline that depicted a white car driving around nearby the 1122 King Road house in Moscow, Idaho, that fateful morning that 4 students with the University of Idaho were just brutally slain. We've seen that. Another fact. Bryan Kohberger has confessed to entering that home, horribly killing Xana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, Kaylee Gonzalez, and Maddie Mogan. Those are facts most of us can agree on. However, what if that's not the only video proof evidence that exists of Bryan being around the house November 13th, 2022, around 4 a.m. Earlier and after, he was there circling quite a bit. And what if Dylan Mortensen, one of the surviving roommates, was not the only person who was an eyewitness to seeing Mr. Bushy Eyebrows there? And we've also heard from a woman named Molly, I'll just call her Molly. We've heard her claims on body cam video. We've heard her say to police officers several times, claiming she was the DoorDash driver, claiming she parked right next to Bryan, claiming she would have to testify against him. This is, of course, before he put in his guilty plea. But today, I'm reeling over these claims and allegations that Molly may have had a dash cam running that would back up her claims that she saw Bryan. So what if Bryan Kohberger was not only caught on camera, those surveillance videos from neighbors circling, performing his 3-point turn and all of that, getting up the nerve to go in, whatever he was doing, circling that neighborhood, reportedly driving like a bat out of hell out of there, nearly hitting someone perhaps when he left. What if those aren't the only videos? What if Molly, the DoorDash driver, also filmed Bryan? So that's the amazing claim being made by a man who claims he's Jimmy, Molly's fiance. We know in those previous body cam videos, we can hear Molly just saying, Jimmy, Jimmy, Jimmy. She says his name so many times. She wants to talk to Jimmy. One of the officers is talking to Jimmy. They're getting into it. It's Jimmy's white truck. He should know a lot about the truck.
And what's your name?
What are we doing?
What's your name?
What are we doing?
Molly's concerned. She was being arrested at that point. She wanted Jimmy to come there to pick up the truck. So we've seen that viral body cam video. And today we have these allegations. You know, people are ready to speak, and I really hope that gag order is dropped tomorrow. Today is Wednesday, July 16th. 2025. As I'm filming this, it's raining outside. You might hear beyond my little, what do you call this? Mister thing. You might hear thunder going on and everything, and rain outside. It's the perfect day to talk about these, what I'm still calling unsubstantiated rumors, until we can get confirmation.
Jordan put me over.
This man claims, he's been claiming, and he's really coming out more to claim on Reddit that he is Molly's fiance, Jimmy, and that he installed a dash cam himself in that truck, and he claims that it backs up what Molly has been asserting all this time. So according to him, if this is really him, and if what he's saying is truthful, have police been holding on to video evidence, potentially of Bryan, filmed from a dash cam that could have been much closer than the surveillance video we've seen thus far, kind of like the faraway view of the car? Now, until we can get confirmation, until the judge drops this gag order, hopefully tomorrow, Thursday, July 17th, 2025, there's a Zoom hearing coming out, and I hope we hear those words, and hopefully lickety-split we see the judge's order, if that's what these entities require, in writing, in order to finally give us some public records. Once I read what Jimmy allegedly wrote, and we'll go through a lot of his writings today. He is pretty verbose, or whatever you call it in writing. He writes a lot on Reddit. Whenever I heard that allegation, I was like, oh my goodness, let me go try and find evidence of this truck. If that's what Molly drove that morning, let me find evidence of a dash cam. Now, I didn't see any evidence of it in the September 4th, 2024 body cam. Like I was scrubbing, that famous viral video that came out that was discovered. I'm scrubbing along and I'm trying to see, okay, I don't see evidence necessarily of a dash cam in that white truck. You see a bunch of stuff on the dashboard and, kind of junky, but I didn't see a dash cam. Maybe they hid the cable better by then. I don't know. However, in this other case, you guys know I've gotten a lot of evidence from a lot of Molly's cases directly from police. So this case 23 M04832. You know that case when Molly had a little fender bender. It was June 13th, 2023. Mainly it consisted of 911 calls, so we could hear the calls. I played those for you before. They also gave me photos.
9:41 p.m. 18 seconds, June 13, 2023.
911, what is the address of your emergency?
Hi, I'm currently at the Walmart the Walmart in Moscow, Idaho. So I'm not really sure the address. It's the parking lot.
Okay, what's going on?
My car was parked here, and I was just shopping, and I got called from the manager that someone hit my car. The lady's still here, and she's saying she most likely doesn't have insurance due to her boyfriend, this being her boyfriend's truck, and I kind of been waiting here to get information from her. I only got her license. That's it. No information on insurance. So kind of stuck on what to do now.
Sure. I will get somebody sent out. What kind of vehicle do you have?
It's a black Volkswagen Colt. Yeah, we're like right at the entrance where it says reserved parking for law enforcement partners.
Okay. And what kind of vehicle is the other vehicle?
It looks like it's a GMC Sierra in white.
And I just want to confirm nobody's injured.
Yeah, no injuries.
Okay. Okay, and then what's the phone number you're calling from? And then what is your name?
Davey, D-A-V-E-Y.
Okay. I will go ahead and have them meet you there on scene, okay?
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
9:43 p.m. 25 seconds, June 13, 2023. 9:43 p.m. 21 seconds, June 13, 2023.
Nothing. It's not an injury accident, Walmart parking lot.
Moscow 13, I have two drivers, two vehicles to attach.
I have the RP and Guaro attached. Go ahead.
First is a personalized plate. Mary Edward Henry through Idaho.
Go ahead the second.
David 35176 Boy through Washington.
And the driver.
This is Molly, female through Idaho.
The second driver comes back valid and also a protected person. Can you confirm the Washington plate? The return I got is on a Chevy 1500, and in the call shows that it's a white GMC Sierra.
That's accurate. The information in the call does is just wrong.
Proceed. Thank you.
10:16 p.m. 34 seconds, June 13, 2023.
Apparently Molly was at some Walmart. She didn't really know how to drive the truck, or she was saying maybe she swung it too close or whatever. She hit this other little black car, and she was very honest about the whole situation. Even though no one was in that little black GTI, the guy was inside Walmart shopping, I guess. But Molly alerted authorities or someone, and people told the guy, okay, someone hit your car, so he must have come out. We don't hear Molly's voice on those 911 phone calls. Molly might have been like, whoa, I hit this car. Let me go in Walmart, have them make an announcement. Whoever drives this little black GTI, license plate, whatever, come on out, I hit your car. And today, for the first time I noticed, it looks like Molly's standing behind the white truck in the back. It looks like her hair is kind of colorful. I didn't even see that before. I didn't really notice that before. So we heard the audio to that. And then I got photos they took of like the truck and the car. And for the first time I was like, okay, let me study this truck. We can see through the windshield. And what I do see, it looks indeed like the cable. I'm glad they gave me this perspective. It looks like a cable running from behind the rear view mirror where most people mount their dash cams, and the cable has to go somewhere. It looks like a cable running down, across the windshield, like from the inside. And so indeed, it looks like that truck does have a dash cam. Now, of course, all these things will have to be corroborated with actual evidence. Those, 68 terabytes? Is it even more terabytes of data? I don't know how much they'll release, but not the gory stuff. Some of it that they can. They'll do it tactfully. They'll blur stuff. But most people do indeed mount their dash cams on their front windshields, typically right behind or near their rear view mirror, because that position provides a clear, unobstructed view of the road ahead. And it helps, stay out of the way of the driver. Now, some cars, of course, like Teslas or whatever, they have their dash cams automatically installed somewhere. But other cars, even newer cars, don't have them. And so a lot of people buy them from Amazon and mount them. They can be very helpful for capturing evidence. Let me tell you, I know a friend who got in a car accident. It was very helpful because that dash cam, it makes me want to get one. That dash cam provided video evidence of he got into a car accident. I don't know what happened. Maybe someone pulled out in front of him. Whatever happened, T-boned him. I don't know. It caught enough evidence to prove the accident was not his fault, and the insurance company did the payout, paid him because there was video proof. Without it, it would have just been, is there an eyewitness or is it just your word against his? So that's why many people buy these dash cams. You can see all the footage from so much stuff happening through the dash cams on the road. And a lot of people typically route their dash cam cable along the windshield's top edge and then tuck them behind some A-pillar trim and into the headline or wherever that is, running them down the power source, whatever that is. And some are able to hide the wire under the door sills or behind interior trim panels. So perhaps when Molly had that fender bender, June 13th, 2023, Jimmy might have just put it there and the wire was running down where we can see it. Well, by September 4th, 2024, when Molly was arrested, I couldn't see the evidence of, like a cord there. Maybe it had just been tucked better from the dash cam. Let's talk about Molly's fiancé. He's on Reddit. He's speaking out. Allegedly, he's prepared to tell all. Just like I do indeed believe Molly when she says she's the DoorDash driver. I think we've got a lot of confirmations. I'm still waiting for police to confirm her.
So I just got the full police report related to the DoorDash driver involved in the Bryan Kohberger case. I'm going to get into this in a second and read you a lot of excerpts of things that I didn't know, but just to refresh your memory, we knew that there was a DoorDash driver, that she dropped off food at the house where the murders happened about 10 minutes before the murders, and the new twist has been that she was pulled over last year, the DoorDash driver, totally unrelated from the Bryan Kohberger case. She was pulled over last year for suspected DUI, and she told the police officer during that interaction that she was the Kohberger DoorDash driver, that she saw Bryan Kohberger with her own eyes, and that she actually parked next to Bryan Kohberger. Okay, so now let me read you a little bit from the police report of what they say, and this is from the police officer's perspective. I'm just going to refer to her as MM because that's the way she's referenced in the court documents. So I'm not going to give her real name. It just doesn't feel right now. But it says, I contacted MM in front of the vehicle. I noticed MM had rapid, jerky hand movements and would shove her hand into her front jeans pocket to try to still the movement. I noticed MM's speech was rapid and that she would trail off or switch topics before finishing a sentence or train of thought. MM told me that she had taken a 10 milligram hydrocodone pain pill, but could not remember when she had done so. They asked her to do some field sobriety tests. During the test, MM swayed and twitched her hands constantly. MM advised that she had taken a pain pill in the afternoon, but she had taken the pain pills for years. She said she had rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia, a condition with her shoulders in which her chest was too big, causing her shoulders to not get enough blood flow. This is interesting. MM said that she has PTSD, insomnia, and began explaining that her husband had been murdered in Moscow and that she was a DoorDash driver that was going to be testifying in the Moscow murder trial. MM said her pain pill that she took was hydrocodone and she took it sometime in the afternoon. I asked MM if she could tell me what time it was. She told me she had no idea. MM said she didn't know the date, but she did know it was Wednesday and told me that she had a can of soup and didn't eat much. MM said she got most of her calories from drinking and described getting a blended Frappuccino type drink from Daily Grind, drinking 3 Dr. Peppers as well as 5 bottles of water. MM said she had a tough time sleeping and she hasn't slept since the night before last. While I was speaking with MM, I noted that she had frequent mood swings and would rapidly switch from being cooperative and friendly to upset and fearful. MM was wearing untied shoes with her feet slipped into them on top of the heel portion of the shoe. MM's speech was fast throughout the interaction and her words often slurred together or trailed off. So that's some of the police report. What stood out to me in terms of this interaction with the DoorDash driver and police last year when she was pulled over. We're just gonna have to wait and see whether she gets actually called to testify in the Kohberger trial. And also, again, we've confirmed that she is the DoorDash driver, but did she actually see Bryan Kohberger? Did she actually park next to Bryan Kohberger, or does she just think she did? We don't really know that part yet, so stay tuned.
You know, they have the initials MM in the documents, but hopefully we'll see more, hardcore evidence of that fact. But the questions are, was this dash cam, was the camera there in the truck? Was it running? Was it capturing film? Capture the white Elantra, how closely did it capture Bryan's face? How good is the footage if it exists? Does it have audio? Why weren't all these facts and evidence spelled out in the probable cause affidavit or other documentation? We've heard about evidence. We've heard about all these terabytes of info, video. Video takes up so much space, but we haven't heard about this before, which wouldn't surprise me because we didn't know necessarily about Molly being the DoorDash driver. We didn't know about her claims of seeing Bryan and parking right next to him until recently. So they don't put everything in the probable cause affidavit, but they say this prosecutor, Bill Thompson, I've been reading, the Idaho 4 book, they say he has never lost a murder case. He even successfully prosecuted some nobody murder case, a murder case with no body. So, when people say no body, no crime, that does not hold true anymore. They're saying, knowing Bill, he would not take a case and, go for the death penalty if he did not have rock solid evidence, which to me, he already had it with Bryan's DNA on the snap of the knife sheath, but there's probably so much more incriminating evidence that we just haven't seen yet, hopefully soon. Now, ever since Molly and this footage came out of her just being arrested, her claims of being the DoorDash driver, her claims of seeing Bryan, ever since they came out, people have been wanting to really dismiss her. Some people have been wanting to dismiss her as inconsequential. The ones who were really in the camp of Bryan's innocent. He couldn't have done it. He's been forced to give this guilty plea, and on and on and on. They're calling Molly unimportant just because they don't like her claims. She's claiming to be an eyewitness of Bryan being there, parking right next to him. They don't like that, so they're dismissing her. They're calling her all kinds of horrible names, all this stuff. And some of them point to this motion that was filed March 17th, 2025. It's called the state's response to defendant's motion in limine number 7 regarding witness identification by bushy eyebrows. Within that motion, it says DM, they're talking about Dylan Mortensen. It says DM is the only living person who saw the person responsible for the 4 homicides at 1122, and they accidentally wrote Kind Road. I thought that was cute, instead of King Road, on November 13th, 2022. But that even goes to show you, even with our best intentions, we can make errors. I'll reread an article or something I'm writing for Patreon a billion times, and then I'm like, whoa, look at that. Once I finally publish it, I'll see, oh, I totally forgot to finish that paragraph, or I did it just yesterday. Anyway, that line was written by Ashley Jennings. She's a senior deputy prosecutor. So people point to that to say, well, Molly's got to be lying. She could not be a witness. You see this motion right here? It says Dylan is the only living person who saw the person responsible for the 4 homicides at 1122 Kind Road on November 13th, 2022. They're saying, look, it's here in legal documents. As if there could never be an error in a legal document. It's just a motion. It's written by humans. We are all fallible. Okay, the way I interpret that is that Dylan was the only living person out of the entirety of the 6 people who were at 1122 King Road that night. I'm talking about all the victims, 6 victims. I'm calling survivors victims too. They're survivors we know. But 6 people that we know of at 1122 King Road. Bryan came in. He wasn't supposed to be there. But of the 6 initially living people at 1122 King Road that night, 4 were killed. 2 survived. Of those survivors, Bethany was asleep in the basement. 1 witnessed Bryan Kohberger. How's that thumbs up for you, Bryan? I take her words to mean Dylan is the only living person who saw the killer at 1122 King Road, like within the home. To me, that does not totally negate the possibility that Molly is telling the truth, that she really did see Bryan, and now we learn she really might have had a dash cam running to back up her statements to police. So I think a lot of this is in the interpretation. It's in the way we, interpret legal documents. Some people only see it through their viewpoint. And I get it. Sometimes it does become confusing. Like when we end, we can talk about author Vicky Ward saying there is evidence, allegedly, that Bryan Kohberger liked some of Maddie Mogen's Instagram photos.
The other thing that was shared with me was that it was Maddie more than the others whose social media posts he liked. I mean, there were some with Kaylee, but the ones with Kaylee were always when she was with Maddie. I mean, if you took Maddie... So
is there evidence of him liking them?
Sorry?
Is there evidence of him liking those or watching those?
Yeah. Oh. They found the social media footprint. I mean, some of Kaylee too, but as I understand it, the ones of Kaylee were
with her and them.
The one, yes, exactly. And you have to remember that Kaylee had already left the King Road house.
People are saying, wait a minute, Prosecutor Bill told us in court there's no direct evidence of Bryan being connected, through social media or otherwise to the victims. So what do you do with that? That's why we need the gag order dropped to try and, interpret as much evidence as possible. So let's get into what this man who claims he's Jimmy, the fiancé of Molly, the DoorDash driver. Let's get into what he's writing on Reddit. So 7 days ago, someone wrote on Reddit, gag order lifted, speculation. At the end of the month, will Ann Taylor speak out and elaborate on Bryan Kohberger being innocent? You can tell what kind of thread or what kind of community this is, BK fans. So of course, arguments ensue after that. And then the original poster wrote, actual evidence. What are you talking about? There's no evidence. It was all circumstantial. The prosecution could not place Bryan at that house. They said it. They tried to get that Molly DoorDash driver to place Bryan at the house and have her lie. So some people are claiming, oh, Molly's this plant. She's a plant. Police used her. They wanted her to lie about witnessing Bryan and all that. They were trying to strike a deal with her. Maybe they would drop charges if she would lie. People have all these, convoluted theories. Now, the man claiming to be Jimmy, Molly's fiancé, wrote, actually, she had a dash cam that backs her testimony to law enforcement. So no, she did not lie. Not one time in this case did she give any false or biased statements. So that's what Jimmy's saying. He's saying she had a dash cam. Now, by him saying that and by him claiming it backs her testimony to law enforcement, To me, that means her dash cam was on, her dash cam was filming, she must have captured video somehow of Bryan and or his car, or either or. Did it catch Bryan literally walking in the house? I mean, that would be just amazing if they've been holding on to that evidence. Was prosecution holding on to all of this? We know this, whatever they have, Bryan and his attorneys know the depth of it, the breadth of their evidence. And if it had him dead to rights, then the truth would be he knew he would be found guilty. He knew he would be subject to the death penalty. That could be why he decided, okay, changing his mind at the last minute, I'll plead guilty. Not because I believe he's innocent. Some people are still out there believing, oh, so many people have been convicted. There's so many innocent people on death row, but they just don't want to be put to death, so they'll go ahead and plead guilty just to spare their own lives. I'm not going that far. Anyway, the original poster wrote, no, she did not have a dash cam. I thought this was funny because I'm like, what if this really is Jimmy? You know, what if you're really the one who installed the dash cam, if it's true? And then you're arguing on Reddit with people who are like, no, she didn't have a dash cam. No, she did not have a dash cam. When she got a DUI in 2024 on a police body cam, she states she saw Bryan and that she was the one that delivered the food. She was wasted and trying to get out of a DUI. There has been no mention in any of the news reports. All references are to the body cam footage worn by police. There's been no indication the DoorDash driver had a dash cam in her car that captured Bryan Kohberger. So Molly's fiancé Jimmy, if this is really, I have to keep giving that caveat because I'm not reading from police paperwork, I'm reading from Reddit, but a lot of things break on Reddit. I've known over the years not to discount Reddit or even the Facebook groups or even Twitter, whatever, because a lot of things I've seen, the Letitia Stout case, a lot of things I've seen, they might just come through as even a YouTube comment on my channel, and then people just jump all over them. Letitia Stout case, I won't forget that. Someone, I think she was only 17, she had commented like, Letitia came in my pet store or whatever, you know. This is before it had been public knowledge. And she's like, I was working and Letitia came in there and this is how she was acting, all that. So many people like just jumped on this teenager. You're lying, blah, 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 whatever. So much so that she had deleted her comment. I probably have a screenshot of it saved somewhere. And then the evidence came out. Letitia was convicted. We got the evidence. We learned even during trial, maybe even before trial, Letitia Stout did indeed stop in a pet store and she was, you know, acting whatever. So the stuff the girl was saying was true, but it just came in a random comment at first. So that's why I'm giving credence to this. I'm not saying it's confirmed, but I'm keeping it in the back or front of my mind, especially so I know what to request, so I know the evidence that could be out there. Molly's fiancé replied, considering I'm her fiancé and was on the phone with her that night and put the cam in the car myself, I think I've got a better idea than you. Now that this case is coming to a close, I get to start shutting down people calling my lover a liar and a meth head and all that BS being spouted that is completely untrue. I know there hasn't been any indication of a cam in her car. If you notice, her name didn't even come out until a few weeks ago because we worked hard over the last almost 3 years to keep her out of the media and the public eye until after the trial. That was their goal. Thanks to some JAs who decided to try and step on her for a few minutes of fame, our efforts went to the gutter and she's been getting ripped online ever since. So many effing lies. It's disgusting and pathetic what's being written about her, but the facts on her side of the coin will be out soon enough. Thank you for your time. Cheers. I was like, whoa, okay. He's been dropping hints the whole time on Reddit. And I'm probably not going to link to any of his socials. I'm like really trying to, you know, I'm not giving out details. I'm not giving out certain details like I could. I do want people to be protected. He's like, we've tried to keep this under wraps for almost 3 years, and maybe that was the prosecution's goal. Maybe that was their ace in the hole. They had all this stuff, but they weren't telling everyone else. After all, Chief James Fry, as I started reading the book, you know, more of the book, I finished part 1 of Idaho 4. You know, Vicky Ward got a good look, a good talk with James Fry, and he's learned to be the type of person where he's more old school, where it's like, you keep your case info under wraps. He wouldn't even accept help initially from Chief Gary Jenkins right over in Pullman. So he was keeping a lot of things under wraps to prevent leaks. Maybe that's the thinking here. If there really is a DoorDash footage that police have and have been holding on to, like their smoking gun, like you guys are dead to rights, look at this video, maybe that's why. But now that people can feel this gag order finally going away, they're like, okay, we're going to learn the truth. So after that, some people, of course, like myself, we sympathize with Molly. And so Jimmy replied to people who were being sympathetic with Molly, I appreciate and respect your hesitance to believe my word. Good on you for that. I will DM you, whoever this person is, with some legitimate, unbiased proof of my word tonight or tomorrow. Proof that I'll eventually present on social media once the litigation is done on the 23rd, and I can finally totally open up and talk about how this case has affected us and rectify some very false information regarding many topics in this case. So I wonder what he has, I also want to say thank you to you and the many thousands of people who have been very respectful of my lady and have recognized that she has been slandered and thrashed by manipulated information in the public domain. See, I don't know everything he's talking about because, of course, I'm so busy researching and writing and filming and editing these videos. That's like takes up my whole days, to create these long, deep dives. So, of course, I don't have time to catch up on all the information that's being spouted out there. Sometimes I'll catch stuff and I'm like, whoa, where did that come from? He wrote, it has been so effing difficult to stay quiet while reading lie after lie being told about her and me and many others that are just victims in this case and deserve much more courtesy than has been shown. Thank you for being one of those who has some common sense about their viewpoint in this case. Please keep on helping others who are being bullied over this case. All my respects to you and yours. Cheers. Of course, no one should be bullied. And maybe his ire, too, is against the police officers who were, that one Officer Jordan, who was saying all those things about Molly and what was in the truck and arguing with Jimmy. And
I'm looking for you, Jimmy. Huh?
Maybe that's where some of his anger is coming from, too. And then Jimmy explained, and she was never convicted of a DUI. She was never charged with possession. That was my truck. I don't touch that ish, and neither does she. She has chronic PTSD from several intense interactions with Ellie, ranging from the murder of her husband right in front of her to times such as the DUI charge, where she was legitimately on prescription medication, which the court found out to be the facts, and dismissed the DUI and gave her a driving infraction. You have no clue as to what you're talking about regarding her situation, either from the night of the murders nor of her life since. Appreciate it if you perhaps got more facts first before claiming anything to be the total truth. Adieu. He bids them adieu. Adieu. So he wrote a lot. And I don't necessarily, it's kind of hard, when you're navigating Reddit, and I got a lot of screenshots and just figuring out who he's replying to. But I get it. A lot of people just had so many bad things to say about Molly. And I was trying to find the facts. You remember I was like, I couldn't find the conviction. I couldn't find how these cases resolved. I was trying to figure out, how did this resolve? Like I did the public records request, but I didn't get the ending of it, and trying to find court records in Moscow. I don't know. I can check the county, but it was difficult to find. But if I can find more evidence of what he's saying, I'll put it on the screen. I just like facts. So he replied to a different thread on Reddit. There's this thread that says, Emily D. Baker thinks gag order will be lifted the same day as the hearing, July 17th. Oh, I hope so. So it's cool. They're complimenting the lovely and knowledgeable Emily D. Baker. I know, I love watching her. She's thinking the judge will lift the gag order, this person writes, the same day as the hearing with no wait or written decision. Oh, Lord and Jesus, I hope that is true because I don't want to have to wait more. I've already gotten rejection after rejection because it's like, nope, the non-dissemination order has not been lifted yet. We're still under that. So I hope hope Judge Hippler is just like lifted it, I don't have to file it. I mean, he can file it, but he can write the order, but I hope we don't have to wait till that order appears in the court system to finally start putting through all these requests again. This person claims Emily said, and I'll link to Emily below, but this person claims Emily said there's really no legal reason not to, and that it was more of a nice gesture because the prosecution asked and it would give them more time to avoid, quote, lack of annoyance from the media. Emily's words. She said the court did say at the plea, hey, can I just vacate the non-dissemination order now? But the prosecution said they really wanted to keep it in place. So I knew I heard something at Bryan's plea hearing about the gag order. I heard the judge talking about it. I thought perhaps he was going to drop it then. So it might only be a matter of hours until this gag order is finally lifted and people can talk. So one person on Reddit wrote, my prediction is first person we will hear from after gag order is lifted is the DoorDash driver or her boyfriend, or both at the same time. Her alleged boyfriend has posted on Reddit and on this and other subs from time to time and appears to be legit. That's what my feeling too here. Like, I feel Molly is legit. Some people will see the body cam video of Molly and her claims, and they might even research her further. They still wouldn't believe her. This person wrote, Jimmy has said once gag order is lifted, he'll be telling all. For example, he claims DoorDash driver's car had dash cam and he installed it. So I think I read that first before I went digging through all his comments to find more. Okay, so another replied, I had to search for it. They're giving the user ID of the DoorDash driver's boyfriend on Reddit. If you want to look through some of his comments, one just a few days ago mentioned he would talk after July 23rd. So that's when Bryan's sentencing hearing should happen. We should hear victim impact statements, I believe. People are wondering, will Bryan say anything? We don't know.
Yes. All right. Thank you.
Just today, he wrote this today, this comment at 3:42 a.m. Wow, he's up early. Maybe it was, closer to 1 something his time. He wrote, that is correct. And that is me. I am, this horror black comedy character I created long ago on Reddit. I hope to one day utilize on multiple media to share with the world if I'm lucky enough to do it correctly. But he wrote, I do plan to speak on everything I've mentioned or been asked about. Oh, maybe he'll do an AMA. Ask me anything. Hopefully he could do that tomorrow as soon as the judge drops the gag order. Someone's going to tell him, look, you're not under a gag order. And he's saying, as a witness, I am. And then they're like, no, you're mistaken. And he's like, well, I have a subpoena that says something like, don't speak out. And then they tell him, yes, okay, a gag order is different than a subpoena, but I see what you're saying. So anyway, he's saying, I do plan to speak on everything I've mentioned or been asked about since this all started after the 23rd, as long as the gag order is lifted at that time. I have every intention of telling things, I think he meant factually, he wrote facially, as possible, and as neutrally objective as possible, minus the insults and lies spread about my lady, of course, that disgusting BS I am very biased about, and I'll spit the facts on all that as well. No matter how good or bad it makes me look, yet that part of the discussion will certainly come with some particularly intense emotions. So I wonder if he'll do a video. It would be great if he did an Ask Me Anything, something. He said, I'm not here for fame or getting popular. I'm here to help get some of the information out there as correct as I can and help people get the facts straight, at least the ones regarding those under my charge, not the truth or the honest swear on my mama and the souls of my children BS farce. So I realized he's been kind of speaking out for months and years. 1 year ago, someone on Reddit had asked, in their big thread, did DoorDash release a statement that Bryan Kohberger wasn't one of their drivers? Question for users. I think some theory was that once we heard Bryan was there and there was a DoorDash driver there, I think some people conflated it to mean, oh, Bryan was a DoorDash driver and he showed up and he committed this crime and delivered the food too? I don't know what they were saying. But this person wrote, I thought early on after Kohberger's arrest, a representative of DoorDash had released an official statement denying his being a delivery driver for them. but now I cannot find it. Does someone have a reference for this, or am I mistaken? So Jimmy replied 2 months ago, that is not the DoorDash driver. So the OP did an edit of their question and they said, thank you for the discussion, everyone. Just to clarify, I'm not saying he was the DoorDash driver. I'm just asking if DoorDash ever confirmed or denied that fact themselves. So they kind of clarified they didn't mean to ask if Bryan was the DoorDash driver, or they're not stating Bryan was. And a lot of people initially too thought the DoorDash driver was a he. I believe they were mixing the DoorDash driver up with that safe designated driver, that frat bro that we talked about when I went over the Idaho 4 Amazon Prime documentary, that David guy who got all that hate and he's worried about how it would affect his future employment when he's Googled and stuff. Another Redditor wrote, yes, they did, and very quickly as someone being there at that time had to be checked out, and it was easy to trace on DoorDash system. Her identity has not been released to the public, and why should it be? So someone knew it was a woman. Jimmy wrote, incorrect, and it's hard to tell who he's replying to, but he wrote, incorrect to date. No personal information about the driver has been released at all by authorities or DoorDash. Any information related to their identity is pure speculation based on misinformation. So I think he wrote this a couple of months ago. I think this was before, Molly was revealed as the DoorDash driver. And then again, he wrote, there was no statement ever released by authorities or DoorDash regarding any information about the driver, except that they had spoken to them and confirmed information regarding timing of the delivery. No personal information has been released ever about them. So Jimmy was being very protective. The only thing cops said was they cleared the DoorDash driver. So a Redditor wrote, yes, they did dismiss the DoorDash driver as a suspect very early. Indeed. I get that. Some people, when the body cam just came out, they were like, why is she just coming out, 2 years after the crime? And it's like, no, she's not just now coming out. Obviously, I'm sure police knew within hours that Sunday, November 13th, oh, a DoorDash delivery driver was here. There's this food. It has Xana's name on the bag, and who delivered this? I'm sure they were on it like lickety-split. And I'm sure they were investigating her very thoroughly, very early. Jimmy wrote, yes, you are correct as far as federal and state authorities are concerned. They stated that they had spoken to the DoorDash driver and did not consider them a suspect. So back then, a couple of months ago, he was still being, not coy, but he was being protective. He didn't say he or she, he said them. He continued, however, as I'm sure you've most likely read here and there, some of the public has not come to the same conclusion. Due to the timing of the delivery and a few other factors, as well as a few other individuals that I cannot mention as of yet. I wonder who he's talking about. Few other individuals. Other people? I mean, people are already jumping on that David guy. I forget his long last name. I think it's an Italian last name. Just by him mentioning in the Idaho 4 documentary that he was somewhere around 4 a.m. and he had, walked past or nearby the 1122 King Road house. He was talking about how eerily silent it was. Just because he said that, I can already see people inferring or outright blaming him, like, oh, he puts himself near the 1122 King Road house at 4 a.m. And I'm like, if he really was guilty of anything, do you think he would, get on an Amazon Prime documentary and say, yeah, I was near there? I can't remember where he said he was coming from, or if he said, he was coming from wherever, a party or something. I don't know. But obviously, the fraternity guys are not guilty. All these people who have had fingers pointed at them all these years, you would think people would believe by now, to stop bothering them, stop bothering the survivors, stop with this campaign of Bryan is innocent. Even he has entered a guilty plea. Anyway, Jimmy continued, what I was addressing was that there was no personal info as far as gender, name, physical description, vehicle description, birth date, etc. released, and still has not been as of now. So that was a couple of months ago when the DoorDash driver was still, incognito. And a Redditor, kind of copied, her identity has not been released to the public, and why should it be? And Jimmy wrote, agreed. So he agreed with that. So people kept talking about this DoorDash driver, and Jimmy notably replied to a lot of them. 1 year ago, a Redditor wrote, the police know who the DoorDash driver is, and they are rumored to be a female. So, see, even this person knew, so some people have some insight beyond what we even knew. There are several publications that publish reports that they were forthcoming, cooperative, and not considered a suspect. The DoorDash driver may be the elusive informant that the prosecution has fought to keep anonymous. Indeed, that's probably why they kept her under wraps all this time. This person wrote, personally, I think it could be one of his sisters. But the fact that the driver's identity has gone successfully undisclosed for so long says something. Maybe they meant one of his sisters could be one of the people, the informant that the prosecution is keeping under wraps. But I think they're onto something in saying the DoorDash driver was so important, one of these important people, that they fought to keep her under wraps. They didn't talk about her technically, like in the probable cause affidavit, in terms of, they didn't say, this DoorDash driver, she saw him, she parked right next to him, she even had her dash cam running. All those factors, if those are indeed facts, maybe they have fought to keep it quiet. For example, they gave us the fact that Dylan had opened her door 3 times. She saw Bryan. She saw what he was wearing. She saw his bushy eyebrows. They gave us that. They put that in the probable cause thinking, okay, that's enough to put in the PCA. Did they have so much more with this DoorDash driver that they were like, let's keep this under wraps. The vultures won't be, seeking her out, bothering her. First of all, they wanted to keep her safe. If she indeed has video of Bryan, if she indeed was an eyewitness, if she saw him enter or anything, they want to keep her safe from anyone who, of course, might have tried to harm her prior to any trial that would have happened, and just, protect her. I'm sure they knew, of course, okay, Dylan's a college student. This happened to her. She can fly away, go home, go somewhere else. This DoorDash driver might not have the means to just leave the area and go live somewhere else for, nearly 3 years, waiting on Bryan to go to trial and be some star witness. So to that notion, 2 months ago, Jimmy replied, they have damn good reasons, I promise. And once they are revealed, you'll understand why. And I hope everyone will agree it was for the best. Maybe it is for the best. She was kept under wraps and all this knowledge is just coming out now. So only a month ago, a Redditor wrote, as an OP said in a later post, there's no reason to assume Molly was drunk when she did the delivery the night of the murder. I guess people must have already been accusing her. Maybe they saw Molly's behavior in, the body cam video. They started doubting her, even though, she blew zeros for alcohol that night. But I guess some people must have been saying, oh, Molly can't be relied on at all as an eyewitness to anything. Look at her behavior. Was she even drunk that night, November 13th, 2022? It sounds like that must have been what people were saying. So imagine if Molly really does have dash cam video like her fiance's claiming, whoever this person is on Reddit. That would become more proof, evidence corroborating what she claims she saw. But we're getting to the point in time where some people, if they want to believe Bryan is innocent for whatever reasons, like we went over all those reasons why women go visit killers in jail and fall in love with these mass murderers or whatever reasons they're having, or if they truly just believe he's innocent, no matter what, people will always come up with an excuse. If Molly has dash cam video that was, submitted into evidence that'll be released as a public record, the next thing coming. All Bryan Kohberger fans are going to say, that's AI, that was manipulated, that's not him. I mean, even if she caught a close-up of his face, even if her headlight shined on his face, or, he maybe had the baklava by then, even if you see some bushy eyebrows and his height and his gait and his weight and everything, I'm sure it'll be, that's not him, that's AI. So for some people, they won't believe anything, which is kind of scary. But this person was writing on Molly's side. There's a very good chance she was sober, but being so close to the college house murder less than 10 years after her husband being shot, this person Googled his name, and that part of her story is true. All of it could have pushed her over the edge. I mean, imagine your own husband shot to death, then several years later you're doing DoorDash all night to make ends meet. She would have been a single parent, and you come that close to yet another killer in such a brutal murder? And you'd have to fear for your life for those weeks before the killer is caught. Oh, yes, indeed. And during that time, you'd have to keep it all secret to protect yourself from the killer and even from the public witch hunts against everyone else, like Hoodie Guy. Yep, we know everyone, not everyone, of course. A lot of people, I don't like when they throw us all in the same bucket. Like I saw on some Bryan Kohberger fan sub, they're like, no YouTube creator links, no YouTube crime creator links. You know, it's like, I don't know, it makes me laugh because when people are like, oh, all reporters are this, or all YouTube creators are this, or all Redditors are this. You know, it's just funny when people do that. We're not a monolith, obviously. We're all different people with different brains and different points of view, different thought patterns. So this person is saying about Molly, I wouldn't be able to handle that level of stress. I can't blame her one bit for being in the situation she is in now. I sincerely hope she gets the help she needs to build her life again. I do too. My heart really goes out to her. Wow. And the person edited their post and they put a link to an article about Molly's husband's murder, and Bill Thompson was the prosecutor. And I'm sure he won that case because he's won them all. Jimmy replied to that, bravo, well said. So I tried to just pick out all the stuff this alleged Jimmy, DoorDash driver's fiance, is saying about the whole DoorDash situation. Someone had posted a theory 8 months ago. A Redditor posted, the DoorDash order theory. Stuff isn't sitting right with me. I've never seen anything showing that Xana herself ordered that, or if it was in her phone data at all. They identified the driver who drove the girls back to the house, but never identified the DoorDash driver. Could it have been a ruse and it was Bryan? Oh, so that's what this person thought. What do you guys think? Forensic Frenzy just did a great video about this subject and asked some really interesting questions regarding the DoorDash order. Here's the link. Another person is like, no, the DoorDash driver came forward right away when the murders came out and was interviewed and was never a suspect. With the gag order, none of the details are coming out. I'm sorry, but show me how Kohberger didn't do it at this point. The guy is guilty as hell. The DNA seals his fate. And another person replied, yes, and the DoorDash driver is a material witness, isn't he? They said he. But at any rate, they're not going to release his name so a bunch of obsessed YouTubers can make his life a living hell. Look what they already did to some of these guys who just happened to be at the food truck at the same time as Kaylee and Maddie. Jimmy replied 3 months ago, first I want to say thank you to you and that previous comment poster for saying what you have. I'm not going to get into many details here, as I will have to soon enough, yet you and the previous commenter are correct. I know this because I've spent the last almost 3 years protecting the DoorDash driver, trying to keep their info out of the public so we could live an easy life while all this developed, which I will continue to do now, during and after it is all said and done, no matter the cost to me. That's something. I mean, that's a good man, even the way Molly was speaking about his health conditions, but he's writing, the fact is such info being out in the public would make life beyond tolerable for all of us inside that circle. So you all are correct in saying that life would become, and actually has been, a living hell with false accusations and the like because of some really ishy timing from a food delivery. And that's all. In truth, once all the facts emerge, it will be seen that those who thought to accuse the DoorDash driver in that aspect of being responsible for what happened are not only going to be proven wrong, but the depth of how misguided that theory is and how painful it's been because of certain previous and relatable experiences. So he's talking about Molly's past. For all of us who stand by the side of the DoorDash driver, well, let's just say we come to the table already bearing severe and unfortunately similar tragedies on our hearts and souls from the past, and the disheartening and horrific outcome for the victims at the center of this case is not our first time facing such things. So anyone attempting to paint anyone I'm speaking of here that I help protect as responsible for this all occurring is effing straight up incorrect. It is such an insult that it brings me to tears, as well as a ferocity I've not known for many years, and it sucks that we've had to be so private and had to alter our lives quite a bit in order to avoid such possibilities from having much more of a negative impact than it already has. I can only hope once it's all said and done that those who were in part by continued choice or by blinding misinformation responsible for us having to become so defensive and diligent in staying almost completely out of sight will have the integrity and courtesy to apologize or even dial down the rhetoric so we can get back to living as we once did. I don't think so. I don't think they will. Thank you for your time, respects, and thoughts to all affected by this tragedy, and better fortunes to all people in the world, not just my fellow neighbors here on the Palouse. Go Vandals, go Cougs. Yeah, he's hoping for apologies. That's why it's good for us not to accuse anybody, ever, from the beginning. You know, I told you guys always, I learned my lesson with Shane Carey, where, you know, it was like, is he a Chris Watts type? He gave this weird interview, Heidi Broussard's fiance. And it turns out I apologized many times over for just insinuating he could have done anything, because he wasn't the one who killed Heidi Broussard. It turned out to be her supposed best friend, best female friend. Ever since then, years ago, I've learned my lesson. I don't create videos saying, hoodie guy did it, hoodie guy's weird. I know that kind of stuff gets a lot of attention, but that's why I don't do it. Now, of course, we can always speculate. Like, of course, I've speculated, especially about Barry Morphew throughout his arrests. I mean, in my heart of hearts, I feel he's guilty, but I have to say he's innocent until proven guilty. I get that for this platform. But, you know, with the Idaho 4 case, it's kind of just like, okay, this is what Kaylee's dad is saying. There's some kind of connections, but it's not like out and out accusing anyone. You know, oh, the frat guys did it, or this guy did it, or, you know, I never do that because of reasons like this, or even people who are saying the DoorDash driver did it. And then when they discover who the DoorDash driver is and they see the body cam video, and then they're still like, oh, she did it, or they're saying she's not credible, or all these things they're saying. And now, of course, Jimmy is like, once the facts come out, you know, you guys are going to be eating crow and apologizing. And I'm thinking to myself, don't count on it. Like, some people might truly really apologize and repent and do things differently afterward, but some people, all they do is dig in their heels and they say, nope, my theory was right, you know, my theory is right. They keep digging in their heels. Like, even after Bryan entered his guilty plea, it's like, nope, he's just being forced to. He's just covering for the real killer. Or, you know, whatever their wild theories are. So anyway, I won't read everything Jimmy wrote because it's a lot of stuff. There was a deleted post a year ago. Some Redditor wrote, is there any truth in this YouTube comment? But it was deleted. But Jimmy replied, there is a witness, but not for the defense, LOL. I thought that was cool. So that's when he gets into an argument about someone over the gag order, and he's like, yeah, actually I am a witness. The gag order applies to me. I have a subpoena that states it quite clearly. So I guess he was subpoenaed, and I'm sure Molly, of course, was subpoenaed. I didn't know they would subpoena both of them. I mean, was he with Molly that night? That's what I'm wondering. I don't know if he was with her other times, so I won't read all that. And they're arguing versus gag order versus subpoena. And then he's talking about maybe the route that Bryan went. Maybe I'll upload some screenshots somewhere so I can show you guys without disclosing his Redditor handle. He talks and talks and talks about, I think some Redditor, it was a deleted post. It's hard to see what they wrote, but I think they were talking about, oh, when Bryan allegedly said, because even this is being refuted, Bryan allegedly said once he was arrested, was anyone else arrested? And people are like, maybe that's a diversionary tactic. We have to wait for evidence to see if Bryan really said that. But Jimmy wrote, like perhaps trying to implicate someone such as the DoorDash driver, if by chance he saw them there and figured that he could set them up as the fall person due to the timing, as long as he was quick about it. Since technically from the current info available, now this was a year ago, mind you, oh no, 2 years ago, from the current info available, the DoorDash driver was the last confirmed person besides the residents themselves known to be at the property before everything went down. Or he was trying to discover if they only suspected him and him alone, or if he was part of a lineup group, or if it was just his car and his residence in Pullman that brought him to law enforcement's attention, and he was being taken in only due to those parallels for questioning. Basically, he's saying if Bryan did ask anything like that, was I the only one arrested? You know, maybe he was fishing for, even back then, how much do you guys really have on me? Well, he sure knows now. So there was another deleted post, but Jimmy replied, someone in this thread said something about pointing out the Lifetime TV movie and saying I was involved in that, and that's the moment some people will be living for. Well, he wrote, I am actually involved in it. I'm under the gag order, and while I'd love to speak on things, I have been reading online since it first happened because, boy, howdy do, we have a story to tell about the impact this has had on our life. Just to set some effing records straight, I can't do it, and I promise I don't want to be involved in this at all, not one bit. He talks about how it's, you know, made their lives hellacious. I want to say what else he said about that subpoena. Yeah, I might end up just there's so much. I mean, he writes paragraphs without like putting spaces in between them. So it's like so much. But he does say, when this is all over, he will answer questions. He does say, you are correct, I'm not under the gag order. It doesn't say I'm under the gag order per se. It says, under no circumstances am I to give any public statements regarding any knowledge I have about the case that has not already been made public, and is suggested that I am to refrain from interacting on any level regarding public knowledge or speculation. So yeah, there's a lot more there, but I just want to get through more of this. He's talking about how it changed the community. That's one thing they talk about in the Amazon Prime documentary and the book, how much it changes. Moscow will always be known for, 100 years from now for this crime, which again, I'm sure was Bryan's intent. Let me choose this small, idyllic, perfect town, these pretty perfect people, and slaughter them in order to make his name memorable. That's my thought. So he goes on, stuff that I'm just not going to read. It's like, oh my goodness, so many paragraphs. He's actually saying some of us do know, unfortunately, basically, how it feels, this case. He's saying, I'm actually a subpoenaed witness for the case. More and more paragraphs, way too much stuff to read. So, that's it for Jimmy. We will see what happens tomorrow, and then whatever evidence we can get to corroborate or debunk anything we're hearing. But the gag order does need to be dropped. I mean, it's been enough secrecy surrounding this case, and I get it. People have to do things in a certain way. Witnesses have to be protected. I understand all of that. Sometimes too much secrecy, it does leave the vacuum, it does leave the chasm for people to say, oh, you guys don't even have any evidence on Bryan. All you have is this and this, when they really have like a mountain. It needs dropping. So I finished part 1 so far of this Idaho 4 book. It's huge. It has 138 chapters. Thankfully, the chapters are kind of bite-sized. It has 6 parts, so I still have 5 more parts to get through. Already, I'm like, what's going on? I've linked to the book below, and author Vicky Ward did have an interview about it. She says there is evidence of Bryan Kohberger liking Maddie Mogen's social media posts more than the other victims. She was claiming there's evidence of him liking photos, even, of course, a lot of Maddie's photos, but also photos of Maddie, like when Maddie was in a photo with Kaylee. Allegedly, he liked those too. But, people are saying, well, wait a minute, didn't Prosecutor Bill say there is no connection, there is no evidence or proof of Bryan stalking the victims? Is that just semantics, or like what is happening? I don't understand. I know there were a lot of fake accounts of Bryan Kohberger set up immediately after he was arrested, which I hate because it's truly like people tampering with evidence. It just confuses everyone. Allegedly, someone was saying, I believe Steve said initially, and you would think they would know his name first. They would know the name, hopefully, Bryan Kohberger first before the public did. Definitely authorities would know his name. But, they were saying at the point when there was only one Bryan Kohberger, for example, on social media, the real Bryan Kohberger, what is the activity of that account? Now, of course, Vicky Ward is saying, of course, they've subpoenaed all these different, social media sites. A different case follower said, okay, they didn't subpoena Meta, which is Facebook, which owns Instagram. And so I was digging, looking for the search warrants and subpoenas. So I have to dig through and get to what is the truth. What social media sites did you subpoena? What came back as a result of those subpoenas? What was really Bryan's Snapchat? What was, all his social media footprint? What does the actual black and white document say? Facebook can be horrible about returning documents, and sometimes I believe, and I hate crime cases where the police send off a subpoena and they won't even give them back the information. They're trying to hunt down a killer. So we'll have to, again, there's so many different people claiming they know so much different stuff. Vicky Ward did say in her interview, I've linked to it below, I'm not purporting to be an expert on everything. But I know she was there, boots on the ground. She spent a lot of time in Moscow. She talked to a lot of people when without James Fry breaking the gag order. But she did find out evidence. But I want to see all of this. I want to see which one was actually Bryan Kohberger's social media accounts. Did he literally follow and or message any of the victims? Different articles come out claiming he did. Did he ever actually go to the Mad Greek? It should be, I would think, relatively easy to confirm with any of the workers there, have you seen this man in your restaurant? If he had if Bryan had frequented the Mad Greek restaurant, where Maddie worked, Xana even worked there too, chances are that could have been how he saw her. So I want to know the truth about that. If he did come in there often enough, if it was true that allegedly Bryan was asking all those questions about, does your food, how is it prepared and all that stuff, if he made himself stand out that way at the Mad Greek restaurant at all, if he frequented there, we should have someone able to corroborate that. I mean, pretty soon after that, I think it was a People article came out claiming Bryan had visited the Mad Greek. The owner came out right away like, no, he didn't. So it's like, what's the truth? It seems like there would be a way, to search his, however he paid, search the info to find, okay, has he been here or not? Certain things, I'm not going to say easy because I know what it's like researching systems, but certain things it shouldn't be so much of a question about. And people have their own motives for saying, yes, he was there. Maybe they want to create a salacious article without saying, I'm not really sure about this. Or maybe the owner was like, no, Bryan's never been here because she doesn't want Kohberger associated with her restaurant. There would be no fault of her own if he showed up there. So that's why I always say, take this all with a grain of salt. Nothing's confirmed yet. So I did read some interesting parts in the Idaho 4 book. That's why I'm really hoping and praying, in the name of our Savior Jesus, that 10:30 a.m. tomorrow, Judge Stephen Hippler will drop that gag order in that motion to vacate non-dissemination order hearing. Interesting things I did read in the book last night. I'll keep reading and, break it up into parts. The highlights. Dylan Mortensen thought Bryan Kohberger was a firefighter, maybe carrying a black vacuum. Maybe she thought, oh, he's tall, authoritative looking. I don't know. And with that on, maybe that's why she thought he was like a firefighter. It says she opened the door a third time and then she saw him, the firefighter. Or that's what she thought he must be, since he wore a mask and was clad head to toe in black. He had something in his hands, a vacuum maybe? Was there a fire? Where was the smoke? She was confused. He was walking toward the back sliding doors. Their gazes locked for a split second. That's what Vicky wrote. And I was like, whoa. We know Dylan says she saw bushy-eyebrowed Bryan. She knows, she talked about the mask, something in his hands. But did Bryan actually see Dylan? That's the first time I've heard the insinuation that Bryan locked eyes with Dylan. So did he see her and just leave her alive? Could be true because, if he went up there just to do whatever to Maddie, and then he ended up, unfortunately, taking Maddie's life, taking Kaylee's life, and then if he didn't anticipate Xana coming up after him, okay, and then he unfortunately slays Xana, allegedly laying like on her back in whatever position, and then is that when he saw Ethan, and was Ethan passed out, and did he just do that to Ethan just to get back at him, just to incapacitate Ethan so he wouldn't have a man running after him who might really give him a fight? Ethan was such a super athlete. That's why I love the Idaho 4 book in terms of how we really get to know the victims. Ethan and his athletic skills and how much he loved Xana and just how funny she was, and she was trying to get her life together, and Maddie and Kaylee's whole sorority ride and how they left the sorority, and it's so many things. You can really picture it. Their parents, all of that. Anyway, did he just incapacitate Ethan to be, of course, extra heinous, cut up his legs and all that so he couldn't come after him? So all four he did that to, and then he walks out past Dylan, and does he see her, and does he decide, and would that be the point where he walks past Dylan? Or did he see her after coming down the stairs? We don't know what order things happened. But does he decide, okay, fine, I'll leave her alive, she can't really see me anyway? Maybe he didn't realize he left the knife sheath and he's like, whatever, I don't have the energy to go in there and fight her. And did he think she's about to call 911, so I better just skedaddle? We don't know. When they do release Discovery, I'm thinking, where are we going to download these 68 terabytes or more of info? That's one thing on my mind. Like, I've paid for Google. It's like 100 and something a month. It'll go up to 250 soon. My Google Drive holds 30 terabytes of data. But I was like, whoa, they said 68 terabytes? Depending on how much they give us, I don't know where we're going to put it all. Maybe just get even more external drives. So let's close with the complete Bible verse that was only partially quoted in the Idaho 4 book. This made me mad last night. Whenever anybody's like cutting off Jesus's name intentionally, makes me angry. Even like that great Forever, it was on Netflix, that series, and they played the song, oh, I love him, take me to the river, I want to go. And they cut off the point where it says, I can remember Mama's words reoccur to me. Surrender to the good Lord and he'll wipe your slate clean. And they intentionally cut it off right before it says surrender to the good Lord. Now, you can see what's happening. Anyway, Vicky wrote, if James Fry and his ride-along partner, Captain Paul Kawatowski, had been called to deal with drunk Joseph Wiederick, that was such a sad case, this drunk student who died out there under a bridge. If they had been called to deal with drunk Joseph, sure, they might have locked him up, but he'd still have had his life ahead of him. Fry is upset that people in Moscow don't get that. What else can we do? He asked Paul one time. Keep going, his friend and colleague said. Don't give up. Then she wrote, the two guys had looked at the framed quotations on Fry's wall. The chief knows them by heart, but he still reads them every day. The first is from Philippians 4:7, and the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, that's that King James version, will guard your hearts and your minds. And I'm like, okay, there's more to that. Almost every version of that verse has Jesus's name in it, you know? So it really goes, let's read the Amplified, and the peace of God, that peace which reassures the heart, that peace which transcends all understanding, that peace which stands guard over your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus, can't cut out that name, wonderful name, is yours. So the other quote she had talked about was the one about standing in the arena, you know, you're the one in the arena. But of course, this one is the most powerful to me. It's a good book. It's really well written. I like well written books. You know, some people are like, is this fiction? It opens up saying it's not fiction. Very good writers. I just want to corroborate truth and fact, what is being said, what everyone is saying, not just these authors. I mean, what this person claiming he's the DoorDash driver's fiance has a subpoena, what he's saying. Once we finally get this gag order dropped tomorrow, let's hope and pray, okay, maybe some truth will start coming out and we'll get more evidence, start getting more videos, more things, since people feel comfortable, can speak, perhaps even before the 23rd. I hope it happens on the 17th. We can start getting stuff. I know it'll take time, of course. It takes time. I mean, look, it took a year for me to get Chris Watts's public records. So it'll take time, but at least it'll be on the way. And we'll have something official from the investigation. It's so sad. It was like a 22-year-old officer who was the first to respond. James Fry sounds wonderful. He was like, oh, his heart dropped when he learned the 22-year-old, he was like a baby, really. You know, they're like a family. And he was the one who responded. And he's like, that officer, the images he would have seen of that crime scene, it's something that won't leave him, and he'll need mental health counseling, everything James Fry was already thinking of and setting up for them. Wow. And that I learned through the book. It's a great book, and I just want to know facts. And once we start getting in this evidence, like in the form of videos, discovery, you know, search warrants, answers, we will know more. We will get closer to the truth. Of course, some people still won't believe it. They'll believe everything's wrong. You know, they'll believe everything's a setup. You can't help people who just want to believe conspiracy theories. People who want to not believe the truth. But reading this book, I see how hard the cops work. I see how hard investigators work. So it's really good. Let's just keep waiting for even more evidence. Thanks for watching.